How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Halligan, and this is my YouTube channel about biathlon. In today's video, we are going to talk about range safety. This is arguably the most important thing that I could talk about on this channel. Doing biathlon races is fun, shooting the rifle is fun, learning to ski, everything is great, but we want to make sure that we're doing this sport in a safe manner. When you're using real firearms, there are real consequences. So there's a few unique things you should know when around a biathlon range, whether you're a spectator, a coach, or a participant. So in this video, I'm going to go over biathlon safety. But if you're new, hit that subscribe button down below because I like coming out with biathlon content like this every week. So hit the subscribe button and you will be kept up to date on everything coming out of this channel. All right, so the first safety thing that we're going to talk about are the 4 main rules when it comes to safety around a live firing range. Rule number 1. Always treat the firearm as if it is loaded. And this is a respect thing. In biathlon, we want to respect the equipment for what it is. It is a live firearm. Part of this respect is actually what we refer to the firearm as. It's not a gun, it's not a weapon, it's a rifle. In biathlon, we need to respect the rifle as a piece of equipment, a dangerous piece of equipment, but it is just a piece of equipment when it comes down to it. The second rule is never point the rifle at anything you are not willing to shoot. Just like in the first rule, there are real consequences to our actions, and the best practice is to always point the rifle in a safe direction. Now this means either downrange when you're on the firing line, or pointed up in the air when you're transporting the rifle, whether on your back or when walking around with it in your hand. When carrying the rifle, it's best to hold it by the barrel so that way it's pointed up. Sometimes I'll see athletes grab the rifle by the harness and it might tip and point towards other athletes, and that's never safe. So when carrying the rifle, always hold it by the barrel so it's always pointed up in the air. Rule number 3 is to keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot. I see this a lot with novice athletes or beginner athletes. They like to grab the pistol grip of the rifle very aggressively, and in doing so will also grab the trigger with their finger. In doing this, you can accidentally send a shot off before you are ready to actually shoot the rifle, and who knows where that rifle could be pointing in that instance. So it's always best to not touch the trigger until you are actually ready to shoot. And finally, rule number 4 is to always be aware of your backstop and surrounding areas. Now, when you are participating in a race, it'll be the job of the range official to keep an eye on what is going on around the range. But if you're just at the range practicing, it's everyone's responsibility to be safe. It's everybody's responsibility to make sure there's no skiers skiing into the range by accident from a side trail, no animals wandering onto the range while shooting is going on. It's everybody's responsibility to be safe when the range is open. So whether you're actually participating in the sport of biathlon, or you're coaching, or you're just a spectator watching people train, there's 3 commands that everyone around a range should know. Command number 1 is range open, and that is exactly what it sounds like. The range official or the coach, whoever's leading the session, will call range open, and when that is called, it means firing can commence. Shooting before the range is open could be a safety hazard. Maybe there's someone down range painting a target or stapling paper, we don't know. So you should not be shooting until the range is open. Along those same lines, there's the range closed command. When you hear range closed, this means shooting is prohibited. Maybe there's something going on down range, someone needs to run down and fix a target really quick, or maybe the session is over, the practice or the race is over for the day, and shooting is done. When range is closed, there's no more shooting. The third command, and this is the most important command, cease fire. When you hear cease fire, you have to immediately open up your bolt and assess the situation. No matter how sure you are that you're going to hit the target, no matter what your sequence is in the shooting process, if you hear someone yell cease fire, you are to immediately open the bolt and assess the situation, because this means that there is a safety hazard that needs to be addressed immediately. Now, anyone can yell ceasefire at a biathlon range. It doesn't just have to be the range official. Say you are an athlete and all of a sudden you notice there's someone down range and they are in the line of fire. You can yell ceasefire and everyone else on the range will stop. Say you're a spectator watching people shoot and you see an animal start walking in front of the targets. You can yell ceasefire and everyone who is shooting will stop. From there, the range official will take over and assess the situation and get the range back open as soon as possible. Now, there's one very important thing about the ceasefire command. We do not tolerate anyone falsely yelling ceasefire. It's okay if you yell ceasefire because you think there's an issue and it turns out to not be an issue. That's okay. But if you're just yelling ceasefire to try to cause a false alarm or see how people react, that is completely prohibited and you will be asked to leave the range area. So ceasefire is an extremely important command that is not taken lightly. All right, next we're going to talk about the layout of a biathlon range. Biathlon is such a unique sport and the range is so different than any other shooting sport out there. Some people might not be familiar with what is actually going on, and they might not know if where they're standing is actually a safe place to stand. So right now we're going to go over the layout of biathlon range. The first thing to notice when at a biathlon range is the firing line. And this is the line that the athletes will position themselves at to shoot the targets. The firing line is exactly 50 meters from the targets, and this is standard no matter what biathlon range you go to. Now, when the range is open, nobody is to cross that firing line. Athlete, spectator, coach, volunteer, doesn't matter, because shots are being fired and that is in the hazard zone. Body parts and skis may pass the firing line, but you are not to take a step across or reach across for anything. So let's give some examples. Say you accidentally drop your sunglasses when you're taking your rifle off and it goes over the firing line. Is it okay to reach over and grab them before skiing away? Absolutely not. If the range is open, nobody is to reach across the firing line or step across the firing line. Should something like this happen, you should just raise your hand, ask the coach or the range official to close the range. You can step across, grab your sunglasses, grab your magazine, whatever you dropped, and then you can come back and then reopen the range. So one important thing to think about when it comes to the firing line is the muzzle of your rifle must be across the firing line when you're shooting. Sometimes athletes might set up too far away from the firing line and they might not get their barrel over the firing line when they're actually shooting. So it's important to think about being in the middle of the mat or towards the front a little bit so that way you know for sure that your muzzle is over the firing line. The next thing in a biathlon range that you should look out for safety, and this is one that's not very common, not very talked about, but the targets. In biathlon, we shoot real lead bullets, and lead has some serious health effects. So if you're going down range to work on the targets or to staple some paper for zeroing, it's always best to wash your hands after dealing with the target because lead is not good for our health. And quite frankly, it's actually best to wash your hands after every practice, after any time we're handling lead bullets or the targets or anything like that. Just wash your hands after being at the biathlon range. All right, now we're going to talk about safety on the actual biathlon rifle. If you're new to the sport and you're just getting into it and you don't really know what you're looking at with the biathlon rifle, this section is for you. If you're just a spectator and you're watching people shoot at the biathlon range, my best recommendation is just don't touch the rifle. Okay, do not touch the rifle if you don't know what you're looking at and what you're handling. But if you're new to the sport and you're trying to get into it, I'm going to go over the safety aspects of a biathlon rifle. Now, I just made a video about the components of a biathlon rifle and what you're looking at, so I will link to that right here. But for the safety aspect of the rifle, the most important thing is the bolt. And this is the part of the rifle on the action that slides the bullet into the chamber to be shot, and then when you actually pull the trigger, the firing pin will hit the bullet and actually make it come out the barrel and fire. So the rule about the bolt is when the bolt is closed, nobody knows. And what I mean by this is when the bolt is closed, I don't know if the rifle is loaded or not. Let me grab my rifle and show you. So this right here is the bolt. And when the bolt is closed, I have absolutely no idea if there's a round in this chamber or not. If I pull the trigger, is there going to be a shot fired or is it just going to click because there's nothing in there? I have absolutely no idea. And if I stumbled across your rifle on a rack and I saw it like this, I would have no idea if there's a live round in there or not. So when in doubt, open the bolt. When the bolt is closed, nobody knows. There's actually literally a rule in biathlon that a range official can disqualify you if they find your bolt closed on the rack, because again, it's a safety issue. So it would really suck to travel all the way across the country or even across the world for a biathlon race just to get there and get disqualified because you left your bolt closed on the rack. It's always best to keep the bolt open because you know that when the bolt is open, the rifle cannot be fired. Now, speaking of rules, this is where things can kind of get a little confusing, so play this back if you need to. When the rifle is on your back, the bolt actually must be closed. And the reason for this is, let's say you accidentally only take 4 shots instead of 5, and you have a live round left in your magazine. you open the bolt and you put it on your back and you start skiing away. When you do this, you could accidentally jostle your rifle and actually close the bolt while you're skiing, and in doing so, load a live round into your chamber while the rifle is on your back. So the best process is to take your last shot, keep your bolt closed, put it on your back, and then go ski. Something I see actually very often when it comes to the bolt is an athlete might load their magazines and get ready to go shoot and realize that their front sight is closed. Their front sight cover is still closed, so they have to reach in front of the rifle to open up their sights. You must do this with the bolt open. Otherwise, there's a potential that you could put your hand in front of a loaded rifle. Another thing to remember about the bolt is the bolt should always be open when doing maintenance on the rifle. The last aspect of safety to remember when thinking about the rifle is the magazines. Now, one aspect of training for biathlon is what is known as dry fire. That means you're handling the rifle as if you're shooting it, except you're not actually shooting bullets. Now, this can be done at home or in the gym, and it's actually very custom for athletes to dry fire away from the range when they're in a more relaxed and more comfortable place. Now, the number one thing to remember when dry firing is to double check your magazines and make sure they are empty. If you have a round in your magazine and you don't double check, you could accidentally, practice loading that magazine. That's part of dry firing, and then accidentally take a shot. That is not part of dry firing, and that can cause some serious issues if you're in a residential area or in a crowded gym. So double check your magazines to make sure they are unloaded prior to dry firing. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you learned something, hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, because I'm coming out with new biathlon content every week. Coaching videos, product reviews, biathlon stories of athletes, and some biathlon commentary. So hit that subscribe button and you will be kept up to date on all the information coming out of this channel. Follow me over on Twitter at BHBiathlon. I don't know how to use Twitter, but sometimes I tweet about biathlon, so follow me there. And until next time, we'll see ya.